Okay, response to Kevin Logan. Okay, Kev made a video response to me. Okay, I don't get this. You explain this fucker to me. Kev makes a video response to me, asks me, so I've got some, Noel will explain this, that, right? If I have a question for somebody, I make sure they're aware that maybe I'm just fucking old-fashioned, Kev. I'm getting too old for this fucking game, right? And maybe that's not what happens. Maybe you sit at home in your fucking wardrobe and I go, I've got a fucking question for you now. I've got a fucking question. But I don't do that. If I've got a question for somebody, I let them know I've got a question for them. So why you didn't let me know you'd made a video response asking me some questions, I don't know. But anyway, I've watched your video and I want to respond. Somewhat face-palmingly, I've been out-teched by you, Kev. Which is a little bit a bit disappointing, but my computer's gone tits up. I'm on the laptop. Okay, so before I start, what this was about was I talked about Mythicist Milwaukee. Kev had obviously watched that video. He had some issues. Well, I had an issue with it. I don't know what he thought of the rest of it. He never said, but I know that he took issue with part of it, and that was the part where I suggested that maybe the issue of just given that this was a sort of either an atheist convention or a skeptic convention or something along those lines, not that they're the same thing, right? Maybe discussing a tweet he'd sent to a female MP saying I'd not even rape you. Maybe that wasn't really central to all of it, right? And if your concern was that Sargon of Akkad appearing would turn the whole thing into a shit show, then putting his what's he called? Is it Thomas Smith, I think the guy's called, right? Putting the other guy, Thomas Smith, into a position where you were forcing him effectively to start discussing this tweet. You're just guaranteeing the shit show, aren't you? And then you're saying, well, look, there you go. There's a shit show where there's lots of other things that could have been discussed. Okay, so let me play you a little bit of old potato fuck's response.
What are you saying, Noel? That we should just pretend like Sargon of Akkad's fucking rape tweets don't exist? Like, that's not a thing, let's just ignore it and sweep it under the carpet because it might make atheism look bad? Because...
Okay, so first off, I'm not saying pretend it doesn't exist. Now, of course, there's loads of times you can bring it up. But just because something should be tackled and brought up doesn't mean every single venue and every single opportunity is the right venue and the right opportunity to bring them up. And I'll give a little bit more of that in a minute. But what do you mean? This is what I couldn't... When I thought, what the fuck does that even mean, right? And I'm not trying to be obtuse. But when you say about making atheism look bad... What the fuck does it mean, make atheism look bad? What does it mean? Oh, God, you've made not believing in God look really terrible now. I mean, I'm trying to find something to hang my little hooks on there and get some grasp on what you could have meant. And the only example I really could think of is when Christians largely, Muslims say the same thing, but Christians largely will point at people like Joseph Stalin, you know, the communist countries in general, because they clamp down on religion, don't they? They are... They are state atheism, you know, that is the state line, is that we are an atheist state. And they say, look at the atrocities that have been carried out in these countries. Look at what shit shows these countries are. This is what happens. This is what happens when you abandon God. And the atheists are running the show, everybody. This is how it's going to fucking turn out. That's making atheism look bad, right? That's an example of somebody saying, pointing at something and saying that is making atheism look bad. I'm assuming you're not saying that about Sargon of Akkad. I'm not assuming you're not saying this is what's going to happen. If we all abandon belief in God, we're all going to end up like Carl Benjamin, right? Because I know that you don't believe that, right? So what are you suggesting? Are you suggesting, and this is where I don't get it, that all the Christians out there are going to be pointing at Carl Benjamin and going, well, if you abandon God, this is what you turn out like. You'll turn out like Carl Benjamin. Right, and he's just the kind of person we don't like. And the reason that this is a bit of a conundrum for me that you would say this is that when I hear Christians give their reservations about atheism, right, Kev, tell me if your experience differs from mine. But when they give their reservations are usually because they tend to be more socially, especially in the United States, more socially conservative. And their fear is left-wing politics, socially progressive politics, okay? You know, these atheists, they all love homosexuality, they all love sin, they all love sex when it's not for the business of procreation or in a marriage. They're all pro-abortion, the fucking wankers, right? This is what they are like. These are the things. So what you're saying to me is that somebody who, you're saying that Carl Benjamin's attitudes and opinions are showing atheism in a bad light. I would suggest that most of these Christians, they're more scared of the likes of you than they are of the likes of Carl Benjamin. Not so much the Jess Phillips tweets, putting them to one side, but I would suggest that they probably find, on balance, people like Carl Benjamin. And this is not to say anything that he's right or wrong. I'm just making an observation, you understand. That they maybe find people like Carl Benjamin a little bit more reassuring, that you can be an atheist and still hold the kinds of views that Carl Benjamin holds. I would be interested to know what you think about that, because that seems at odds with the statement that you were making. Okay, back to my fucking low-tech approach. Let me forward this. I think this is where I want to be.
For it, atheism's in a bad fucking place. So the fact that it looks bad is just an accurate portrayal of reality.
We're coming up now. Here we go.
Which I thought was what skeptics were
Well,
about,
maybe not now.
but perhaps not. And by the way,
here we go. Right.
Just an interesting aside, your approach here of let's just not talk about it because it might make atheism look bad is rather similar, do you not think, to the way in which the Catholic Church has dealt with pedophilia?
That was a real fucking reach, that, Kev, wasn't it? You surely you could have got Hitler in there. I mean, come on, fucking hell. So what you're suggesting is, because you're taking what I'm saying, that this may not have been the optimum venue to discuss this thing. And it's not as if this is something that hasn't been discussed to fucking death, right? And you're saying, well, so that means we never discuss it then. These things can't be discussed at all. If you're going to discuss something, it has to be discussed in every venue, at every fucking opportunity. Obviously, I mean, this must be what happens at Christian conventions, don't they? They decide, right, what speakers, they sit around a fucking great big table and go, right, what speakers have we got this year? Okay, right. Let's dish the dirt on them. What's the most objectionable, contentious, controversial thing all of our speakers have said? Because we'll make sure they're all tackled on these things on stage and see if we can portray Christianity in the worst possible light, and then go, whoa, we've just portrayed Christianity in the worst possible light. How the fuck did that happen? I'm assuming you're a Jeremy Corbyn fan. Right, I don't understand this, right? It's like the fucking Catholic Church watching the Labour Party annual conference, because Jeremy Corbyn is somebody, I mean, you won't approve of this, Kev. Jeremy Corbyn is somebody that says some pretty, over the course of his career, says some pretty fucking controversial things, some statements about things such as the IRA that a lot of people in the United Kingdom find really, really objectionable. And you know what disturbed me? Is that when it came to the centrepiece of the Labour Party conference and Jeremy Corbyn appearing on stage there, right, they didn't use that to tackle a list of all the most objectionable things that Jeremy Corbyn has said throughout his career. I mean, that's the kind of thing the fucking Catholic Church would do with paedophilia, isn't it? Instead, you know what they let him do, Kevin? They just let him give a speech about the things that he wanted to talk about. Totally brushed over all those other things, swept them under the fucking carpet as if they can never be discussed, Kev. What a load of bollocks I'm talking now. Why? Because of course those things can be discussed, and of course those things have been discussed. In many ways, in the terms of Jeremy Corbyn, they've been discussed to fucking death, Kev. Just the same as they have with Sargon of Akkad. But that doesn't mean that at every touch and turn, every conceivable fucking venue is the right venue to drag them out again and just go through the same old fucking arguments for the nth time, right? Does it really have to be? I mean, does it really have to be that if I say this particular venue where he's the headline speaker of this public-facing convention might not be the optimum time to start discussing something that's got no fucking relevance whatsoever to the subjects of the fucking convention itself, right, means, according to you, that I'm saying that these things must be swept under the carpet and never mentioned at any moment, touch or turn. Bollocks does it mean that, Kev. Okay, that's all that I wanted to say. Okay, right, how do I stop this fucking thing? Thanks for watching. Bye for now, etc.